Good to see everybody after the off week, and we're certainly looking forward to host NC State this Saturday. This is the 113th meeting between NC State and Wake Forest, a rivalry that dates back to 1895, and it's the 110th consecutive game in the series going back to 1910, and we shared that with our players. This game has been played every year. It has survived world wars, conference realignment, everything. And it's great to be able to have games like this. These are the games that make college football special. An in-state rivalry against a team that you play every year. I was watching the ACC network earlier and learned that this is the third longest uninterrupted rivalry in the country after Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Clemson and South Carolina. So it's really cool to be part of a game like that, and on top of it, we're playing against a very talented and extremely well-coached football team. In 17 and 18, NC State had 18 wins, which I believe is second after Clawson in our conference. So the last few years has been one of the very top programs in the ACC. Offensively, they're averaging 27 points a game, 412 yards. They have a good offensive line. They're very well coached. Their skill is always excellent. I think Amizi is one of the best receivers in the ACC. Certainly, Thayer Thomas has come on as of late, and he's a great baseball player, and they'll find different trick plays with him, and he'll throw passes, and he's a really good punt returner. Devin Carter has certainly come on for them, and we're very familiar with Tabari Hines, who we know from personal experience is a very talented and excellent receiver who's very dangerous with his hands on the ball. So their skill is really good. They've got three excellent and very talented young running backs, and we think we'll see all three of them. And I understand they've just made a change at quarterback, and certainly Leary finished the BC game playing very well. Defensively, they changed their scheme this year. They're more of an odd front, and on every level of the defense, they're very talented. They've always had a good D-line. This year's no different. Murchison right now leads the ACC in sacks. The linebackers are very active, and these are guys that have played a lot of football for them, and they're always good in the secondary. Certainly when you look at their secondary, it seems like we've been playing against Moorhead forever. He started, I think, close to 40 games for them. They've had a few injuries at corner, but other than that, they're playing with their defense that they expected to play with this year. So, I have a lot of respect for Dave. I got to know him when we were in the MAC at Northern Illinois, and he did a great job there, and he has certainly elevated NC State's program as well. They also have a new special teams coordinator, and he is doing an excellent job. Right now, they're number one in the conference in punt return, number 4 in punt, and number 6 in kickoff return. So their special teams are extremely well coached, and when you're good at the skill positions, you become good in the return game. So their punt return game, like I said, is number 1, good kickoff return, and they have an excellent punter. So these games have been one-score fourth quarter games, last 30 seconds, last 20 seconds. We expect no different. So this will be a very tough football game, and again, we're excited to get back on the field, after Florida State.
Dave, what's been the adjustment for your defensive linebacker without Justin for the last couple weeks?
Obviously he's a really good player, and we're going to miss him. Not only was Justin a really talented player and our leading tackler, but he was really the leader of the defense. He was the vocal guy. You don't replace him. You hope somebody steps up, and Jaquez Williams certainly is capable of being a high-end player. We are going to take Chase Jones out of redshirt. We have already played him one game. He was in that red alert category, and with as much football as we have left and what we're capable of accomplishing, we're going to play him because we need to. The team needs him, and he was all on board. And those guys are going to have to step up, but it's one of those things that collectively everybody's going to have to step their game up. And we've got to do a great job communicating. Justin was kind of the leader in terms of the checks and getting everybody on the same page. And now, Ryan Smenda is going to have to do a much better job with that, and he will. I think when you have someone like Justin, there's a tendency to rely on that person because he's so good at it and he's so confident in it. And Ryan is getting to the point now that he's played a lot of football and he's more than capable of doing those things for us.
What's been the process for Jaquez moving from rover to linebacker in the past 9 or 10 months? I think it's been.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he played in there last year. Last year when we had all those different injuries inside, when we had DJ Taylor down and Justin was down for a little bit, and last year we were to the point in Florida State that we only had one. He played the whole second half against Clemson last year at linebacker, so it wasn't as if he was starting from scratch. Also, the position he played, our rover position, in a lot of ways, that's the field linebacker, and the position he's playing now, Buck, is the boundary linebacker. And a lot of our coverages and some of our fit structure, those positions at times can be somewhat mirrored. So again, it wasn't starting from day one, but it's different when you play a little closer to the ball.
Dave, have you ever had to face a former player before on the field as a college coach?
No, this is different. No, that's not true. When I was at Bowling Green, we opened the season that year against Troy, and their starting quarterback was a guy named Levi Brown, who had started his career with me at Richmond. And so he was at Richmond and played a couple of years and then transferred to Troy and became the starter and ended up making the Buffalo Bills. And, they asked him the question of, what's it like to go against your former coach? He goes, well, geez, I wish he was playing corner so I could throw a post against him. And I'm like, well, he's been well coached. If, we saw a 45-year-old corner out there too, we'd want to throw posts against him. But Levi went to Troy and had a great career there. And I think at one point he might have been the Sun Belt Player of the Year or the All-Conference quarterback, and ended up with the Bills, and I think he now coaches at Troy. So I've done this before, and once the game starts, it's a game. I think with Tabari, we know his skill set. We know he's a very gifted player, and we certainly don't root against him. And in this particular game, we're not exactly rooting for him. But Tabari had a good career here. He was very productive for us and graduated and wanted a different role, and he's had a chance to find a different role.
What's going to decide who starts at quarterback for you,
if Jamie can go, he'll go. If not, Sam will go.
How close is Jamie?
Like if Jamie can go, he'll go. If Jamie can't go, Sam will go.
Going off of that, Sage said earlier that Sam's success against Florida State was mainly because every week in practices that he could be a starter. So in your eyes, what would you say the relationship is like between Jamie and Sam this week?
I mean, those two guys, obviously when you're competing for the same job, that becomes hard personally, but those two have done a great job in terms of supporting each other. I've said this a few times. I think that example here was really set by John Wolford and Kendall Hinton. John and Kendall competed for that job for how long? And they both wanted it, they both competed for it, yet at no time did they ever let it become personal, and they became very good friends because of it. And I think the fact that Jamie saw that and how positive those guys were, that kept things positive between Jamie and Kendall, and it kept it positive between Jamie and Sam. So we've had good examples of how to handle that here.
How much has changed with the bye week process from one earlier this year?
Not much. Like we do off-season research on that stuff, and if you don't give up too long kickoffs and a punt return, it's a non-issue. So, we're preparing to play NC State. We've played well here in openers. We've played well in bowl games. our preparation, it is what it is. Now we have to go out there and play well and execute well.
What do you see from the North Carolina State defense? It seems like, look at their games, it's been a bit of feast or famine. Either they've completely shut teams out or they've given up everything. What are you seeing from that unit?
I just think it's the nature of coaching is that we watch the film and see what they're capable of. So you watch the Syracuse game and how many quarterback pressures they get, and even the Florida State game, and how good their front is. They've had one of the best defensive fronts in the conference, all 6 years we've been here. This year's no different. What's different this year with them is it's a total scheme change. They brought Coach Gibson from West Virginia, and NC State had always traditionally been kind of a 4-down, quarters-based, boundary eagle team, with some change-ups on 3rd down that at times involve some Okie spacing. And now they've changed their defense. I would bet if somebody had their playbook, there's very few calls that they have in their defense that were similar to a year ago. Some of the coverage stuff is a little similar, but it's a completely new defense. And that's the 3-3 stack system that West Virginia ran with Rich Rodriguez, and then West Virginia kept it, and they took it to Michigan, and then they ran it at Arizona. We've certainly faced it before, but we haven't faced it yet this year. And whenever you face a defense that the spacing is different, the rotations are different, that's always a challenge, that you're taking some of your base plays and you got to tweak them a little bit. And how you try to gain leverage against a defense like this is different than a 4-down. Now, what's ironic is for Florida State, all we did was prepare for Okie, and they came out and played us in 4-down. So a lot of the things that maybe we thought we would end up doing against Florida State, we had worked on, and some of their NC State spacing is a little bit different at the second level, but it's still guard uncovered defense a lot of the time.
How much do you know about Devin Leary? What have you seen from him?
I mean, he certainly finished the BC game, and he made some good throws, and obviously they feel good enough about him that he's now their starting quarterback. But they've played all 3 guys, and with all 3 of them, their skill sets are a little bit different. And even though they've named him the starter, I think we have to be prepared that any or all 3 of them at some point could play.
Notice Christian Beal-Smith isn't on the 2 depth chart. Is he officially out for this coming game?
He's going to be out for this game. That he turned his ankle in the Florida State game, and he'll be kind of week to week, but he's out for this week.
Going back to some of what you were talking about with Les about the Okie front, I'm sure you prepared for Florida State with that in mind. So how fresh does that stay from 2-3 weeks ago?
Pretty fresh. Again, and we prepare for it in preseason camp. Nowadays a lot of people will run that defense as their nickel defense or their 3rd down defense. There's times that we've run versions of it. So, it's not as radical of playing a spread team and then playing a wishbone team. But it's different. And, to play well in the O-line, guys got to be on the same page, and they have to know where their combinations are going to, and, where the double teams are working to. And when you have something you just haven't worked against, you have to get familiar with it.
And kind of what plays into it a little bit is short yardage situations is something that it seems like sometimes you're going well with it, and then other times it hasn't worked as well.
I mean, really the Florida State game, we didn't execute. We had guys open. Florida State, when you got to the red zone, they were going to outnumber you and man you up, and we were going to have to make throws. And we missed throws. A play that Sage would usually make, and the ball was a little bit behind him. And then we had Kendall wide open on a speed out, and we overthrew it. And you look back at that game, and, whenever you don't score, I think you always, as a coach, say, was it what we did or how we did it? And in this case, it was clearly how we did it. We had open guys, and we had plays to be made that we missed. We didn't execute. And whether it was a back on a stretch play, cutting it up too soon, that if we just stay on our tracks, probably score. If the speed out to Kendall is one that sticks out, that he comes out of the route and slows down a little bit, and Sam thinks he's going full speed, and I can't understand why Kendall didn't come out of it, and you miss it by a foot. And if the ball's thrown a yard inside or Kendall's full speed, it's a touchdown, and it's a non-issue. But the bottom line is we didn't execute in those situations. And the nature of what we did is that you had to throw the ball against those guys. So to me, it was a different problem. It wasn't like we couldn't get a yard. I mean, we were in red zone, and a lot of the red zones just happened to be on the 10-yard line, 9-yard line, 11-yard line. They weren't 4th and 1s or 3rd and 1s we weren't converting.
Is part of that partially, potentially, first game of the quarterback being with those receivers in that game?
Oh, yeah.
This season?
There's no question. I mean, that's always, it would certainly make sense, right? I mean, Jamie throws to Kendall, Scotty, and Sage more than Sam does. And, with a lot of what we do, which is timing-based and being familiar, and, who knows, if Jacory Roberson was running that route, we probably hit it because Sam's so used to throwing to him. And, getting the quarterback and the receivers on the same page is, hey, is the guy walling him? Is he on the high hip? Is he on the low hip? I mean, the amount of reps that takes to get that familiarity, it's hard. And that's why, when your starting quarterback goes down, it's not just, hey, is the backup good? It's all the reps that the backup didn't get with the starters that makes the transition hard.
How concerned are you from a macro level of losing 2 guys back-to-back weeks, basically, in the backside of the defense, and Luke Masterson and Justin Sternad?
I mean, I don't know what you can do, Les. It's part of football. I mean, what good does worrying about it do? I mean, every year when we start preseason camp, when we develop our depth, we always talk about the what ifs. What if this happens? What if this happens? What if this happens? And it's not just quarterback or tailback or receiver, but it's every position on the whole football team. What would we do if Don Maggio pulled a groin? What would we do if Skiba had turf toe? I mean, and these things happen. And, no team goes through a year untouched. That's rare. To lose 2 guys like that hurts. Those are arguably 2 of our most versatile players. Not just what you lose on defense, but what you lose in the kicking game. But as a coaching staff, it's our job to be prepared for those scenarios. And it's not an excuse not to do well. I mean, it's football. It happens to everybody. So, we got to find a way. And, we've been preparing Chase Jones as a backup, even though we thought we might redshirt him. We've been giving him reps for the last 4 weeks as a number 2, and every time we go Wake against Wake, because we've said if something happens to Justin, he's going to have to play. And Justin's playing 75, 80, 90 plays a game, so we've been in practice for the last 3 weeks, taking reps away from Justin and giving them to Chase Jones in case this would happen. And you hope it doesn't happen, but when it does, it's not like we haven't talked about this and say, hey, this could be a possibility.
If memory serves, you were relatively high on Chase Jones coming out of camp.
Yeah, and we really thought we were going to play him, and then we stayed healthy. We didn't lose any of our top 4 linebackers once camp started. The whole time, Ryan, Justin, Chase Monroe, and Jaquez Williams, I mean, those guys didn't miss a rep. And so we were going to play Chase, and even there was a game there, we put him in special teams and thinking, hey, we're going to need this guy at some point. One of those guys is going to go down. And, we got through 6 weeks before one went down, and then, in the 7th week, we lost 2.
Going into the year, you talked about how rare it is to have NC State, Duke, and North Carolina at home. What kind of crowd do you expect to have?
I think we're going to have a great crowd. Every indication is that this will be the best crowd of the year. And that's, This what makes this a great game is fans are used to this game. It's 110 years, and certainly, you know, the NC State has a great fan base. You know, they travel well, and whenever you go to Carter Finley Stadium, that's always a packed house, and they're loud, and it'll be a great environment for college football. And again, I just think these games have to be preserved. They really do. You know, I know that a lot of things are done for TV, but I think a packed house also makes for good TV. So I think it'll be a great atmosphere, two good football teams, in-state rivals, and you know, there's a long history to this. All right, thank you.